I think for me, just on a personal level, is people feel like they know me as that character personally. And yes, I lived in Manhattan and I did not do anything to help myself. I would take home wardrobe. I would date my person I'm dating wardrobe. I would date my person I'm dating on the movie. I feel like even when I give interviews and I'm making some ridiculous joke, they print it and sort of print it as if like some elitist circle was saying it, because I'm known for being this Upper East Side girl that would never say something.
Maximum Effort Productions, along with Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, Leslie Sloan, Sony, and the rest of their inner circle, is now under fire amid accusations that they themselves are responsible for the collapse of Blake Lively's reputation. And while the fallout grows louder, Ryan Reynolds seems increasingly desperate to bury his own culpability, along with shielding his wife, his company, and their longtime publicist. According to insiders, this sudden motion for spoliation is nothing more than a frantic attempt to hide the truth about what Ryan, Blake, and Leslie did, all while trying to block Wayfair from defending themselves in court. Blake's filing claims that Wayfair deleted auto-deleting signal messages she insists would have exposed a coordinated digital smear campaign against her. She argues that Jed Wallace, who isn't even a defendant anymore and whom she's no longer suing, allegedly orchestrated the entire plot behind the scenes. But legal analysts are calling this motion exactly what it looks like: a last-minute panic maneuver designed to bury the chaos, conflict, and behind-the-scenes turmoil that Ryan Reynolds reportedly created on set. Blake Lively insists that Wayfair destroyed key signal messages she claims would have proven a coordinated digital smear campaign against her. But the timeline she presented in court has only raised more questions and, according to analysts, makes her argument look even weaker. Blake argues that Jed Wallace used Signal's auto-delete features to orchestrate an untraceable attack on her reputation, yet the facts don't line up with her theory at all. For starters, Jed didn't even join the situation until the 9th, long after the wave of negative publicity had already begun. Blake herself only cites a sudden spike in bad press that appeared within 2 days of Jed getting involved. And legally speaking, it is almost impossible for anyone, even a seasoned PR strategist, to manipulate or redirect the entire internet in just 48 hours. The math, the timeline, and the digital footprint simply don't support her accusations. But Blake's goal is clear. She wants the court to punish Wayfair by throwing out their defense entirely. In her motion, she's essentially telling the judge, they deleted evidence, here is my proof. Because they deleted it, they shouldn't be allowed to deny the campaign happened, and they should be sanctioned for it. In other words, she not only wants monetary penalties, she wants the defense stripped of their right to argue their side of the story. And this isn't the first time she's tried a tactic like this. Blake attempted a similar move with Jamie Heath over the infamous birth video, hoping the court would sanction him and prevent him from defending himself. But that judge rejected her request outright. He refused to punish anyone or limit testimony simply because Blake claimed something was missing. And now, once again, she seems to be recycling the same strategy, pushing it even harder, despite the fact that the evidence she has provided does not support the extreme remedy she's demanding. The judge made it clear in the Jamie Heath situation. Yes, he could turn over the birth video, but no, Blake could not silence his entire defense. He ruled that stripping someone of their right to defend themselves is an extreme sanction, one that is only used in the most severe, deliberate cases of destruction. And compared to that, the issues Blake is raising now are far less serious. So the idea that Wayfair would be completely barred from defending themselves? Legally, it's unrealistic, and most analysts agree the judge is unlikely to agree with her. What makes this even more ironic is that in her rush to accuse Wayfair of wrongdoing, Blake has actually revealed more of Wayfair's defense than the public had ever seen before. Every filing she's uploaded to the docket has given outsiders, including the press, a clearer picture of what Wayfair is arguing behind the scenes. And the more she files, the more obvious it becomes why Ryan Reynolds, Maximum Effort Productions, and Leslie Sloan want this buried. Their fingerprints are all over the timeline, the mismanagement, and the behind-the-scenes chaos. They know that if these details stay in the spotlight, the narrative shifts and the liability shifts with it. Ryan Reynolds, Leslie Sloan, and the entire Maximum Effort circle clearly do not want any of this exposed. They don't want to sit in a courtroom and face accusations about what they did behind the scenes. And Blake's strategy is obvious. If the judge blocks Wayfair from defending themselves, then Ryan's bad behavior, the company's missteps, and the publicist's involvement stay buried forever. It's a move designed to protect their image, not to reveal the truth. Blake is demanding that Wayfair respond to every single one of their affirmative defenses, especially the ones they plan to use at trial. In her interrogatories, she specifically targets the heart of Wayfair's argument. Interrogatory number 7, answered by Justin Baldoni, is the clearest example. These interrogatories were sent to multiple people, Jamie Heath, Jen Ale, to Melissa Nathan, and others. Each response is slightly tweaked, but Justin's version is the most central because he's at the core of her accusations. Blake's question is blunt. Identify in reasonable detail all factual and legal basis for your contention that the criticism against Miss Lively during and after August 24th was entirely organic. Essentially, she wants them to explain exactly why they believe the backlash wasn't part of a smear campaign. After standard legal objections, Justin gives the answer Wayfair has been standing on. Colleen Hoover's wildly successful novel It Ends With Us, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and the film adaptation itself were already at the center of massive public attention. The negativity surrounding Blake didn't suddenly appear. It began the moment her casting was announced and continued because of paparazzi photos showing the wardrobe she selected for her character. On top of that, rumors of tension between Blake and Justin on set amplified social media scrutiny. But the biggest spike in online chatter came from Blake and certain cast members mass unfollowing Justin Baldoni and from Justin's conspicuous absence from the film's press events. These actions, all happening prior to August 24th, fueled public suspicion and discussion without anyone needing to artificially manipulate the internet. According to the response, the surge in attention didn't come from any hidden campaign. It came from the public drama surrounding Blake herself. The marketing for the film, the press optics, and Blake's own decisions fed an already intense online conversation. Fans were already buzzing about rumors that Blake was trying to wrest creative control away from Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, and Wayfair Studios, all while Justin appeared mysteriously absent from key promotional events. This alone created a storm of gossip and speculation. As media outlets responded to the growing interest around It Ends With Us, Maximum Effort Media began reporting on several major issues. First, they highlighted what they described as a poorly conceived and tone-deaf marketing campaign for the film, a campaign spearheaded by Blake in collaboration with Maximum Effort Productions and Ryan Reynolds. Second, the press criticized Blake for promoting a film centered on domestic violence while simultaneously pushing her hair care brand and her alcohol company, creating a disconnect that many viewers found unsettling. Third, journalists pointed to Blake's decision to have her alcohol brand sponsor an official promotional event, and even more controversially, to name a signature cocktail after the film's male lead, a character who is a domestic abuser in the story. Fourth, they noted Blake's conspicuous refusal to pose for photos or participate in press opportunities with Justin Baldoni, along with her pattern of excluding him from promotional appearances, international premieres, panel discussions, and official screenings. All of this fed into what Wayfair describes as Blake Lively's deliberate campaign to isolate the film's cast and crew, positioning herself as the center of the narrative,
sidelining the very people responsible for bringing the story to life. And rather than suppressing criticism, these choices only intensified public scrutiny. Naturally, organically, and without any need for a coordinated digital attack. Wayfair's response lays it out plainly. The negative public image surrounding Blake Lively didn't come from a secret online conspiracy. It came from the accumulation of her own actions and the relentless spin pushed by her legal team. In fact, the filing argues that Blake's attorneys have only made things worse by weaponizing public relations tactics, cynically misusing terms associated with domestic violence survivorship, and invoking Darvo rhetoric to paint herself as the victim. On top of that, they've aggressively deployed subpoenas to intimidate internet influencers and silence anyone who dared criticize Blake publicly. Wayfair essentially ties all of these points together like a neatly wrapped package, making it difficult for Blake to argue that a single entity orchestrated her downfall. If she insists that Wayfair is solely responsible for her negative press, then how does she explain the tactics her own legal team has used? How does she justify the ongoing smear campaign her attorneys continue to direct at Justin Baldoni, in their filings, in their statements, and even through proxies in the media? If Blake truly wanted to rehabilitate her reputation, no reasonable attorney would have recommended filing this lawsuit. Instead of clearing her name, it has exposed the very behavior she hoped to hide. The behind-the-scenes conduct on set, the clashes she created, and the hostile environment she and Ryan Reynolds allegedly contributed to. Every filing, every accusation, every attempt to silence criticism only reinforces the narrative she's trying to escape. The filings make one point unmistakably clear. Before Blake Lively entered this production, there were no problems. No chaos, no power struggles, no hostility. The set functioned smoothly. But the moment Blake was hired, everything shifted. Conflicts began, tensions rose, and the working environment fractured. The common denominator, as Wayfair repeatedly emphasizes, is Blake herself. She was the one who disrupted the harmony, created the hostility, and triggered the chain reaction that followed. What's even more damaging is the section where they outline the primary reason she received backlash, the marketing strategy she and Ryan Reynolds personally created. Maximum Effort Productions, Ryan's company, was responsible for the film's entire marketing campaign. And according to Wayfair, it was Ryan and Blake's own decisions that the public rejected. Their concepts, their tone, their approach. One of the most criticized examples was the now infamous 5-minute sketch where Ryan plays a jealous, controlling husband towards Brandon Sklenar. Viewers immediately called it tone deaf, arguing that Ryan was mirroring abusive behavior in a film explicitly centered on domestic violence. It baffled audiences then, and it still makes no sense now, especially since Brandon and Blake were not even romantic leads in the movie. There was no kissing, no affair storyline, nothing that justified the skit. To many, it felt like Ryan was injecting his own insecurity into the marketing of a film about abuse. Then comes the unclean hands argument, the part many people were waiting for. Wayfair accuses Blake of participating in the very same type of wrongful conduct she claims they committed. They lay out a detailed list. She created disputes on set, fostered hostility, turned cast and crew against Justin Baldoni, sidelined him from production decisions, disrespected his religious beliefs, and pursued an ongoing smear campaign to manipulate public sentiment against him. Wayfair goes further, accusing her of showing blatant disregard for survivors of domestic violence by downplaying the film's themes, attaching her alcohol brand to its promotion, and prioritizing lighthearted, playful marketing over the serious message of the story. And while she accuses Wayfair of engaging with the press, the filing points out that Blake herself, through a shell company, filed a sham lawsuit to launder stolen communications and slip selectively edited messages from Jen Iel's phone to the press, specifically to the New York Times, before she even filed her actual lawsuit. That is the core of the unclean hands claim. Blake Lively is accusing others of a smear campaign while orchestrating one of her own. Wayfair argues she created the hostility, alienated the cast, dismissed the film's serious themes, and then weaponized stolen evidence to control the narrative. And now, in yet another interrogatory, Blake demands an explanation for how she supposedly failed to mitigate damage to her reputation, a question Wayfair argues is answered by her own conduct. Wayfair's response makes it painfully clear. Blake Lively has failed to repair her reputation because she is the one who damaged it in the first place. They point out that the opportunities she claims to be missing out on aren't being taken from her. She's deliberately turning them down. She openly admits she declines acting roles, directing projects, and public appearances. And she acknowledges that she avoids working on any project that would require her to be on set at the same time her husband is filming elsewhere because she refuses to be apart from him. Wayfair highlights how unreasonable that is. When two people in a relationship work in the entertainment industry, just like two musicians, two performers, or two touring artists, time apart is part of the job. Distance is normal. Schedules rarely align perfectly. But in Ryan and Blake's case, the filing suggests something deeper. Ryan Reynolds refuses to let Blake work away from him because of jealousy, insecurity, and years of distrust. The pattern speaks for itself. Blake has famously developed close relationships with co-stars, Penn Badgley, Ben Affleck during The Town, and of course, Ryan himself on Green Lantern. Ryan's fear of history repeating itself seems to govern their careers, and Wayfair argues that this self-imposed restriction is limiting Blake's opportunities, a limitation she created, not them. Wayfair goes further, saying Blake worsened her reputation after August 24th through tone-deaf cross-promotion, tying her hair care and alcohol brands to a film about domestic violence. She made statements about Wayfair that were provably false. She exploited Me Too language in a way that damaged her credibility, and she launched abusive legal tactics, including creating a shell company to file a sham lawsuit solely to launder stolen communication from Jen Iles' phone to the press, specifically to the New York Times, before she even filed her actual lawsuit. That is the core of the unclean hands claim. Blake Lively is accusing others of a smear campaign while orchestrating one of her own. Wayfair argues she created the hostility, alienated the cast, dismissed the film's serious themes, and then weaponized stolen evidence to control the narrative. And now, in yet another interrogatory, Blake demands an explanation for how she supposedly failed to mitigate damage to her reputation, a question Wayfair argues is answered by her own conduct. Wayfair's response makes it painfully clear. Blake Lively has failed to repair her reputation because she is the one who damaged it in the first place. They point out that the opportunities she claims to be missing out on aren't being taken from her. She's deliberately turning them down. She openly admits she declines acting roles, directing projects, and public appearances. And she acknowledges that she avoids working on any project that would require her to be on set at the same time her husband is filming elsewhere, because she refuses to be apart from him. Wayfair highlights how unreasonable that is. When two people in a relationship work in the entertainment industry, just like two musicians, two performers, or two touring artists, time apart is part of the job. Distance is normal. Schedules rarely align perfectly. But in Ryan and Blake's case, the filing suggests something deeper. Ryan Reynolds refuses to let Blake work away from him because of jealousy, insecurity, and years of distrust. The pattern speaks for itself. Blake has famously developed close relationships with co-stars, Penn Badgley, Ben Affleck during The Town, and of course, Ryan himself on Green Lantern. Ryan's fear of history repeating itself seems to govern their careers, and Wayfair argues that this self-imposed restriction is limiting Blake's opportunities, a limitation she created, not them. Wayfair goes further, saying Blake worsened her reputation after August 24th through tone-deaf cross-promotion, tying her hair care and alcohol brands to a film about domestic violence. She made statements about Wayfair that were provably false. She exploited Me Too language in a way that damaged her credibility, and she launched abusive legal tactics, including creating a shell company to file a sham lawsuit solely to launder stolen communication from Jen Iles' phone to the press, specifically to the New York Times, before she even filed her actual lawsuit. That is the core of the unclean hands claim. Blake Lively is accusing others of a smear campaign while orchestrating one of her own. Wayfair argues she created the hostility, alienated the cast, dismissed the film's serious themes, and then weaponized stolen evidence to control the narrative. And now, in yet another interrogatory, Blake demands an explanation for how she supposedly failed to mitigate damage to her reputation, a question Wayfair argues is answered by her own conduct.